about policing, fire matters and community safety matters. We have a panel of experts here to answer any questions you may have. So thank you all for coming out on such a cold evening, and I'll pass you over to the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner for Essex, Roger Hirst.
Good evening, I'm Roger Hirst, I'm your Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, and delighted to be with you here. It's not been such a cold day today, has it? It's quite a good turnout. Maybe the two of you. Good, that would be good. The emergency exits, I think, are fairly obvious. There's another one over there, if you need them. Let's hope we don't. We've got plenty of emergency services in the room to help us out, should we need to be helped out. The way we'd normally do this, the key thing really here this evening, I think, is to hear from you. Is this working?
No. Yeah,
no,
just there. I can turn it up.
It's probably better to, if you have on a mic, actually to use it so it can be heard. The key thing this evening is actually to hear from you, hear your questions, hear your comments, hear your thoughts, hear where you see things that need to be dealt with, and hopefully we'll deal with as much of those as we can this evening. We may need to take things away, we may need to come back with a plan. Did one in Brentwood a few weeks ago, and they raised some issues, and I'm really pleased to say last week we actually did an intervention plan around that particular area, which seems to have been very successful. So there are things that can actually directly lead to things that we can do to make things different here for you in, I'll say Wickford, I mean in the whole of Basildon, but we're actually here in Wickford at the moment, and I'm guessing that quite a lot of you will actually be Wickford residents, but it's not limited to Wickford, it is across the whole district. So normally what we do is introduce ourselves, and I'll say a few words about the big picture. If anybody else wants to say anything particular, I think the Chief Inspector does, then we will, but we'll try and get that done in about 10 minutes and then move on to actually hearing from you. Please do come in. There's plenty of seats down the front, as there always are.
Thank you very much.
Please do. So can I just maybe hand the mic along and introduce ourselves, please?
Certainly. Good evening, everybody. I'm Julie Long. I'm the Antisocial Behaviour and Community Safety Manager for Basildon Borough Council.
Good evening, everyone, and I'm the Police Hopcroft. I'm the Principal Community Safety Officer at Basildon Borough Council.
Good evening, my name is Jason Gould. I'm the Station Manager for Basildon, Wickford and Billericay Fire Stations. I'm also a local resident of Wickford, having lived here for the last 12 years.
I was going to say, maybe Jason, you didn't have questions for us, then you never know.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Dan McHugh. I'm the Chief Inspector, District Commander for Basildon Police Station. Yeah, hello, everybody. I'm Steve Parry, the Community Policing Team Inspector at Basildon.
Thanks very much. I'll just say a few words just to sort of give the overall picture. I mean, in many ways, yeah, I think we've got quite a good story to tell at the moment across the county, insofar as we've been investing pretty heavily over the last 5 years. 905 extra cops over the last 5 years. That's expansion. So we're now up to 3,755, which is the biggest that Essex Police has ever been in its 184-year history. And at the same time, we've invested very heavily in new information technology, which means that these sort of remote devices, etc., which means that the police officers are able to be out and about with you on patrol more often, more time in their shift than they ever could before. So I think that's a bigger presence. That's, of course, against the backdrop of a bigger population. So that needs to be borne in mind as well. But even relative to the population, Essex Police is now stronger and more capable than it ever has been before. We also had a major strategic shift towards doing more prevention work. So that has meant that the new cops have been largely deployed, over 470 of them actually in front-end policing out and about with the communities. And the others are in things like detective work and in the specialist areas such as dealing with domestic abuse. The good news is that where we've been able to focus, so around homicide, around antisocial behaviour, we've been able to do more than halve those types of crime over the last 5 years. So antisocial behaviour is now down about 70% over 5 years, and that's going really well. And that's really by focusing on hotspots. It's by focusing on proactive policing in places where we know we have crime and known offenders. And it's also been through target hardening. So with the government backing, we've actually spent quite a bit of money around and about, certainly here in Basildon district, overall on New CCTV on working with the local council to make sure that through the community safety partnership we have got as tough an environment for criminals to operate in as we possibly can have. That's not the end of the story. I mean, we still need to do more. I think the big investment over the next few years is actually going to be in developing the officers that we've hired. To expand by 900, we've had to hire about 2,000. That's a lot of new people in Essex Police over the last 5 years. Of the 2,000, about 600 are still in training. So they're not yet qualified for independent patrol. They're not yet out and about with you on the streets. That's yet to come. So you should see more of the officers actually, as they get qualified, out and about with you on patrol, making a difference. And I think as well as they gather more skills, as they get more expertise around specialist sorts of crime, they'll be able to do more there as well. Overall, in the last year, crime's down by about 6% across the county. Really pleased that we've managed to reduce some high harm crimes by a lot. So working in partnership with local councils, with social services, with youth groups, and doing stop and search on the streets, we've really managed to reduce violent crimes, particularly drug-driven violence. So probably the best piece of news I have is that drug-driven homicide is down by 70% in this county. That is very much different from the trend across the country. We've managed to do stuff here. Essex has been a really innovative police force, and that's made a big difference to how we've been able to deal with that. There are places where we know we have a lot more to do. We've started to be successful with domestic abuse. So we've supported victims better, but we've also brought in some perpetrator programs, which are meaning that we're actually getting hold of the offenders and helping them change their ways and treat people better. That means that domestic abuse across the county over the last year is down by about 15%, which is good. But we have a lot more to do around rape and serious sexual assault. Those are crimes which are still at unacceptably high levels, even though we're bringing more people to justice, and we have increased the number of successful rape prosecutions threefold in the last 3 years. It's still nowhere near where it needs to be. There's a lot more to do there. And I think that also in some of the acquisitive crimes. So right now, you are seeing a bit of a surge in burglary here in Basildon and Wickford. And we know we need to have to deal with that. There's also a lot of shoplifting. That's a national story. You've read about it in the newspapers. It's as true here in Essex. It's true here in Basildon and Wickford as it is anywhere else in the country. And we know we have to deal with that. And right now, here, particularly in the west of Essex, so it's not just you, it's also Epping, Brentwood, Thurrock, we are seeing a big increase in vehicle theft. Some of that is to do with new vehicles, high-end vehicles, targeted vehicle theft. Some of it is actually to do with cheaper models. The Ford Fiesta seems to be a particularly targeted model just right now, and that's apparently because its engine's so useful in other vehicles, I have learned. But those are things that we know we need to deal with. On the fire and rescue side, again, we've been making some pretty good investments there, not expansion in the same way as it's been with Essex Police, but we have really bolstered our fire protection and prevention activity there, doing a lot more work with businesses to make sure that they are safe premises and reducing the level of risk really across the county. And we're also working with vulnerable households, making sure they've got smoke alarms, making sure that they know how to keep themselves safe from fires. And I'm really pleased to say that the target for Essex County Fire and Rescue Service now is to actually have 0 deaths from dwelling fires across the county. We don't achieve that. We've only achieved it once, but we are pretty close to it. And that, I think, is a really good target and series of investments that Essex County Fire and Rescue Service has been able to make. So it's not as big a story, but I think it's just as good a story in Essex County Fire and Rescue Service as we have for the police. That's probably enough from me. I think I've exhausted my 10 minutes, but you wanted to say a little bit.
Thank you, Roger. I wanted to talk about the bits we're doing in terms of more to do. Obviously, we're really aware and we're doing proactive work around the rising dwelling burglary. We had a spike in December, which we've not seen and experienced before, but the team led by Steve and my other inspectors recognised this and we've reacted to that. So in January, we had 20 less offences by putting more officers out in directed locations, being in the right place at the right time. Over January, we arrested 8 suspects for dwelling burglary. Currently, they're on bail pending further inquiries. Only last night, our community policing team arrested 2 suspects for aggravated burglary in Basildon. They're currently in custody and inquiries are ongoing. I make these comments to you to show that we're taking real action. We take it really seriously. We're using our intelligence. We're speaking to our members of the public, the community, yourselves, the eyes and ears that we need to fight crime and be better at it in all measures. As Mr. Hirst mentioned as well, violence with injury and violence without injury is falling in this district, which is fantastic news. We are making real strides in reducing violent crime, which is one of our real priorities. We now must keep that pressure on, making sure that this is an uninhabitable climate for suspects and offenders to commit crime. We've got a number of proactive operations carrying on in the district around burglary, and the real focus is it's a blend of covert, undercover policing tactics with high visibility patrols. It's much more around prevention for us. If we put the work into prevention, we can make real, genuine strides in reducing crime and catching offenders and bringing them to justice. So I wanted to share with you those highlights, those real tangible outcomes for you, that we are taking action, we're arresting people, and we will bring them to justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Inspector. But let's go to you now. Who's first? I would ask you please to use, I didn't say, did I? We are actually being streamed, so please, if you use the mic, then the people online can hear as well.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to raise the issue about wildlife crimes. It's great, all the things that you've discussed, but for me, I feel it's a bit of a gateway crime in that if people are willing to commit crimes against animals, albeit people might say, oh, it's just a pigeon, it's just a whatever, but if they're willing to do that, the next thing it's your pet, and then it's your child, you know, and I think it's something that needs to be addressed, because I don't actually know who we are meant to raise this with, what penalties people get when they commit these crimes, how they can actually be caught. It seems that there's nobody ever around at the time of these things happening, and I've heard so many people saying, oh, I saw a group of people, usually young people, doing whatever to some poor animal, and they're too frightened to obviously tackle them, and obviously nobody wants to risk getting hurt themselves or getting accused of hurting anyone. But what are we to do about it? Because I dread going into the parks, because you think, am I going to be faced with some animal being tortured, catapulting? It's getting really out of control. It's just ridiculous. And then obviously they then catapult your car, your windows, your house. You know, I mean, I'm not so concerned about property, and I'm sorry for everybody else that has had things happen to them, but I just don't want to see animals tortured. I don't want to go out walking around and have to be faced with that. I don't think it's right.
I actually have to admit, I didn't see this question coming here in Whitford. It's not something that I've heard has been happening.
It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible
Yeah.
around here.
So what?
It's terrible, and I've reported it time and time. And we get told it's not a police matter, and that really upsets
The
me.
wildlife crime is a police
Because I
matter.
feel it is a police matter, and it should be taken seriously.
And we have, in other areas of the county, we've actually done quite a lot about
Yeah,
it.
I just find it
particularly-
really upsetting, because I like living here. I love the people. It's a lovely place. It could be a
Yeah.
lovely place, but to have that on your doorstep is just
It's actually
distressing.
traumatising.
It is.
I'm
yeah.
sure it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
So actually,
I just wasn't expecting to hear it.
Yeah, the other day I found this pigeon. Somebody had alerted us on the Whitford Chip Chat that you'll be aware of, and I went there hoping that I could rescue it and take it to the wildlife sanctuary that I take a lot of animals to. And it was there, smashed up, covered in blood. It had been stabbed and thrown about, and the people doing this, young people, had been filming it. Somebody saw them. What kind of people do that? And why do we have to live amongst those people? And why are they not brought to justice?
Yeah,
That's
so
what I want to know.
elsewhere in the county, when we have got a rural engagement team, which is a lot around wildlife crime,
Yeah.
perhaps more elsewhere in the county than here, which is one of the more urban areas. So things like hair coursing, we've actually managed to halve hair coursing over the last 5 years,
Brilliant.
which is quite a big step forward. That's quite a big area of wildlife crime.
Mm.
But I wasn't aware that you were having this in your park. So, Chief Inspector, are you aware of it?
It's a daily occurrence, so
It
it
is,
should be.
yeah.
It really is, yeah.
Well, it's something that we need to take seriously. Absolutely. Obviously, I can feel the feeling from the room about this sort of traumatizing. To see animals injured and hurt, and it's something that certainly Steve and I will look at and investigate. It's something that's important, that we want people to feel like they can enjoy the parks.
Exactly, and you don't feel you can tackle these people because you don't know what
No, no.
weapons
But
they've
it's
got.
not for us to tackle them.
No,
today,
but what
it's
I mean
not.
is if I see them there with torches in the hedgerow and they've obviously got catapults, and it just makes me so angry that I know that they're torturing animals.
So the gentleman behind us seems to have some examples of where it was. Maybe pass
Yeah,
the
this is
mic to
only,
them.
it's pretty much a week, I don't need that.
So for those online,
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2. Yeah, so it's a pretty much weekly kind of occurrence with the, unfortunately, we all know Wickford has a community of people that tend to enjoy this kind of activity, young males between sort of 12 to 15 years old. We all know who we're talking about. And it will be catapults. I've reported a number of times males walking down the street openly with catapults. Well, they'll fire at pigeons. We've had incidents where your guys have caught them underneath the bridge, Southend Road, and dealt with that quite robustly. They're shooting at lampposts as well. There's been quite often reports of that with the catapults and the BB guns. There's quite a lot of incidents around BBs being used on windows. I know this lady's talking about animals, but it's also part of the same group of the community that are carrying these off-webs and then using them in the public place. Yeah, it's pigeons. We've had, was it a goose or something last year?
Yeah, it was my sister.
Yeah, so you guys would have picked it up from your community teams. The PCSOs would be aware of that definitely, and reported that in. But it's become recently a kind of weekly thing. You'll see either windows shot at or pigeons attacked. So,
specific places.
Memorial Park, because they're along the railway line. They're looking up into trees and stuff like that, aren't they? So the Wick Country Park, Memorial Lane, Cranfield Park sort of area.
Isn't that where you found the goose?
Um,
And the lady that saw the goose being tortured,
Thank you.
Sorry,
I just want,
frustrating.
no, that's fine. But the poor lady that saw the goose actually being tortured had a child with her in a buggy, I believe, and she couldn't do anything anyway, you know, what on earth could she have done? It wasn't right, she got involved. However, she was completely traumatised. I was traumatised just hearing about what happened because apparently the lad swung the goose round by its neck, actually swung it like this. It was still alive, obviously. My sister and her partner went to rescue it because they live nearby when they heard about it. It was still alive, wasn't it? And you rushed it to South Essex, who were brilliant. And they had to euthanize the animal, obviously, because it was so badly tortured. But that was actually something quite traumatizing to witness, to see, to have rescued. You went there and, you know, covered in blood. It was absolutely horrendous. And time again, people are witnessing instances like this. It might not be a goose, it might be a duck, it might be a pigeon, it might be someone's pet. And we know as well people's pets are being stolen too. And it is completely traumatizing. I don't know why we have to witness this. It's being reported all the time on the Chit Chat. It's making me nervous about my pet when I go walking, when I'm in my house. Is my pet going to be stolen? Don't want to leave my pet in the car for 5 minutes if I pop into a shop, you know, my dog. It's becoming quite scary. That's right. Thank you. I've said enough.
No. You're all valid points. And the thing is, with these guys in the front there, as frontline police officers, these things can happen in like literally a matter of seconds, can't they? So, so for them, with regards to resource intensity, by the time we've called 999, as we quite rightly would, to come in all the way from Basildon, perhaps, is a 6 minute on blue lights. It's a 6 minute call. They've long gone. They wear camouflage type fishing clothing. So the more people that report this into 101 and call 99, because that is an offence. Carrying that stuff is an offence. It is animal cruelty. So if we can try and educate our members of the community to try and do their best, then that helps these guys with their resourcing and proactiveness. Yeah, absolutely.
People feel it won't do anything.
Yeah. Why should I bother reporting that? Nothing will be done. Yeah.
Maybe just on that last point. I mean, it may be on Wickford Chit Chat, but it's really important you report. I mean, I'm not a cop. These guys will give you more lowdown any minute now. But my dad was a cop, and for 37 years, and he told me many times that the number of times you actually catch someone on a 999 is very rare. Actually, most of it is intelligence. Most of it is having you report what you've seen, where, what time of day, description of the people, what they were doing. And if you actually report that on 101, or perhaps easier even online, perhaps via the live chat, which can be an easier way of getting it in. If you can get the intelligence into these guys, they can then get the pattern. They can see the picture. and they can
I'm
work
sure
out.
Probably most of the people in this room have probably done that. It's the wider community, isn't it? But
Yeah, but I'm just stressing the point.
Yeah,
that, that's
I
really.
do agree with you. I empathise with them.
Sorry, I grabbed the mic back.
Yeah, last year we had the same sort of incidents, a little peak probably, I think January, February time, and we were fortunate that we made, I wouldn't say made arrests, we took some positive action because they were juveniles, so we did an education piece at the time. It's come to my notice probably the last couple of weeks that we've seen a spike, and that's through Whitford chit chat rather than through us, because somebody had said, you know, every day we monitor different groups, and somebody as a resident said, oh, we're seeing a lot of comment in relation to catapults. So we're not seeing it in terms of what's reported to us. So it will be an ask from me, but equally I will go back and speak to my sergeant and say, look, we're seeing this. We need to get the communications back out there in terms of some of the educational piece. I know that you speak to two PCSOs, Debbie and Ian in particular, and they've seized a fair few catapults over, you know, the recent years. I do know what group you're talking about, but again, what we really need is that information intelligence. If people aren't brave enough or confident enough to report it themselves, then utilise Crime Stoppers, particularly if we've got names that will come through to us, and we'll happily act on that. Equally, like I said, the more we have in terms of report of antisocial behaviour around that particular area, then we can look at what I do with my resourcing and move the teams about to capture that, because it's disgusting. It should not be happening. You know, it gathers an awful lot of interest, quite rightly so, but we need to be on the front foot with it. So I'll speak to the sergeant tomorrow when he's back in and say, look, this is one of the first things that's raised, which is not what we were expecting. So it's clearly very raw and in the room, and it's something that we'll jump on.
Gentleman here would like to make a point.
Thank you, Maurice.
I'm pretty certain that 15 or 20 years ago, Essex Police had a dedicated wildlife crime team. One of you might know why it was disbanded.
We have one now.
All right.
Yeah. We just need to make sure it's properly engaged.
Gentleman here would like to make a point.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you. Straight to the point, the High Street and the town centre. Since the closure of the police station some 10 years ago, 10 years ago, it's a long time now, and it wasn't sold until 2020, I understand. It's laying there like a white elephant. We don't have a police presence in Whitford. We do not have a police presence regular. We do not have a robust presence. That is the issue. We have gangs that are forming on their bicycles, 20 and 30 strong in number. All through the spring and the summer of this year, and it is seasonal, that they are terrorising the people on the pavements. They purposely ride in both lanes, centre towards oncoming traffic. I have emailed countless times Inspector Parry, and I never got any responses. Because I never got any responses or even acknowledgement of the emails, and I gave them full-blown information, including photographs, I had to then contact our MP, Mr. Mark Francois. I had 2 letters back from him in response that he had contacted the Chief Constable and gone to Essex Police and raised his concerns. And as far as this is concerned, we know it's seasonal, so because we're now into colder evenings, colder weather, the kids are not out on their streets. But there are a hell of a lot of people that are saying, I do not want to visit Whitford High Street. More vulnerable people. It's causing people fear to go shopping. So much so that less than 10 days ago, Gymophobics Gym in the centre of the High Street, right next door to the card factory, was attacked by a gang of these kids, and they kicked the double glazed sealed units in on their door. I am informed that the police never turned out for that. They could hear the threats and the insults to the women that were inside the locked doors, and they still never came. They I also have to take, and I'm sorry to take so long, but I will complete it soon. Now, I've been speaking to the managers of Iceland's staff and Poundland, and Iceland and Poundland both say that they are in, they have the local town police radios where they can directly call the police, and 9 times out of 10, the responses are, what do you want us to do? We've got no one available. I'll send a PCSO. That's what I'm getting back from the staff at the actual, they're actually calling the use of the radios about as good as a chocolate teapot in an oven. Okay? That is their responses. The social media, as far as chit chat, I don't know about, but I know very much about Wickford Crime Watch because my name is John Webb and I help to run that. I administer that in a very fair manner. And I'm also a retired police officer. And as far as this is concerned, this has been going on way too long, and all of it is because we have a lack of a strong, regular presence of police officers in uniform, on foot, not round in cars. We need them back on the streets. I'm sorry, but the old method from years ago, and I am 71, worked far better than we have now. All we have is an LGBT rainbow decorated police vehicle with 2 PCSOs. That's all we have. Police do turn out when they're called on 999 on a 1. Yes, I get that. And I support the police wholeheartedly. I've spoken to Police Sergeant Goodchild at Basildon Community Policing Team. I've had a long conversations with him after emailing him. And I've stood up and I've turned around and said, and I still would do now, God forbid it, if I saw any uniformed officer in trouble that needed my assistance physically, as old as I might well be, I would give a hand. Okay? So please don't think I hate police or I'm against police. I just want police. So there's many, many other people who haven't come here tonight because I've spoken to people and people are saying, I don't want to say too much on mainstream media or on social media because of the fear of being targeted by the police. That's exactly how some people are saying. I don't suggest that you do. I don't. I'm not suggesting, but that's their take on things. So there's a much, much bigger picture, as other people have said. We are not seeing a strong, robust police presence. We're seeing e-scooters and segways being constantly ridden around town and not stopped. They're not stopped. They're driving past PCSOs, which I've reported, Mr. Parry does know about that, Inspector Parry, a couple of years ago. And I watched them sitting at the traffic lights at the high street and just ignored 3 kids riding illegally on the pavements on e-scooters. They need to be stopped. All of us here who drive, we pay for our MOT, our tax, and we do everything legally and lawfully. Those machines that are illegally being used are not, and they're silent killers. We all know they are. You can't hear them or see them coming until the last second, especially when they're being souped up to do 32, 35 mile an hour. It doesn't take much reckoning that a child or a person weighing 8 stone travelling on a machine at 32 mile an hour, which is a child or an elderly person, that's going to be a very serious outcome. We need to get on top of this, and we need the covert policing to be stepped up in Wickford High Street. We want the CCTV cameras manned in the High Street to assist the police, because that's why technology has increased over the years to help them with their investigations and to identify people. That needs to be addressed. We have one camera working, and if it's looking in the right direction, it will pick up something. Okay, the kids now call the police feds. They're regarded in the American slang terminology as feds. Okay? This is why the children, the gangs, are laughing. I'm sorry, I've gone on too long because other people want to say something, but thank you very much for asking.
There was a lot in there, and thank you for raising it all. I've taken about half a page of notes, actually. There are various points we need to take out and see if we can tease them out. Certainly there's something about the town centre. Maybe I'll just go straight to the council about the CCTV because you run it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. With regards to the CCTV, I'm pleased to inform you that there is more than one camera working. I believe we've got 90% of cameras working at the moment. We are looking at the future of CCTV across the whole borough. And the plan is that we do have a monitoring service, that we're not doing retrospective viewing of CCTV, that it's being actively monitored. I agree with you there. That's something that we're pursuing as we speak, and we're going through the process at the moment. With regards to the high street and patrols, myself and my colleagues, Mr. Parry, we use our resources jointly as best we can. I manage the contract for community safety warden scheme, and I hope, have seen the officers patrolling the town centre. And I'm pleased to say that we've recently been successful in some additional funding to target patrols in Wickford entirely. So we've got some additional patrols to patrol Wickford High Street. My colleague, we're also looking at the situation with regards to pedal cycles, because we know that's an issue and it's how you deal with it. And if my colleague Lisa is happy to pick that up, we can explain to you what our plan is with regards to that. So I take on board everything you say. Patrols, high visibility patrols. I know that's what people want to see. Hence we've put in for additional funding. We hope that then you'll be seeing more boots on the ground, more uniform presence in Wickford High Street. That's what we want as well. And we're also looking at the situation with regards to pedal cycles. So I'll pass over to my colleague if that's okay. So thank you.
Yeah, just with regards to pedal cycles, so obviously we know that's been an issue, and so we will be looking at that as part of our public space protection order. Obviously, we've not got any powers in the Wickford High Street to deal with that, and so we will be looking at maybe introduce a prohibition that would mean that we can actually address that, and the wardens will be able to enforce, as well as CSAS powers. Obviously, the police have got powers to tackle that, so if our wardens then have that power, then they'll obviously have to enforce as well. So we are looking into it, but obviously with these things, unfortunately, it takes a bit longer for us to do that. So it is happening in the background. So, and we also, I think last year we worked with our youth service as well to run just some kind of educational work with the young people as well in terms of what their behaviour is like, and they run from the downtown. So we are trying education as well for the young people.
Thanks very much. And maybe I'm actually going to ask people as well to try and keep the questions a little tighter going forward. I'll go to the police now.
A lot to unpack there, and I hear what you're saying, and I hear the strong feeling in the room regarding antisocial behaviour. Young people gathering on the high street, the feeling that you don't want to, shop in the high street anymore. That's not a message I want to hear, but I hear it. And we will tackle it. I was here a couple of months ago for a local council meeting, and it was mentioned. And I reassured those people that turned up that we would take action. We've got plans in place for the summer when it becomes seasonal, and everything, as you can imagine, with your experience as well, being in the police previously, everything is treated on a threat, harm, and risk basis. So those 999 calls, we get to them. Those 101 calls, we record them, we try to get to them as best we can. We do have resources, we do have robust officers in the community policing team and my local policing team, and we will take these matters seriously. So give us the opportunity now to hear what you've said, and we will take action.
I'm very pleased to hear that. Thank you.
I have a lady at the back here wishes to make a point.
Hello, sorry I was late, but I do follow the PFCC's Facebook, and thank you very much for all of your efforts this year. It's been very much improved from when I sat with you guys in the chamber at Basildon. I'd just like to say this is a Basildon borough meeting and not just Wickford. So as much as it's nice to hear from the gentleman, I do think that the Wickford kids do get quite bad press when actually they're not as bad as what I think. Anyway, please let me have an opinion, because you wouldn't even answer on Facebook. So let me speak, because you'd never let me speak, so I will speak. Because this is a Basildon borough meeting tonight, and actually what I find a bit strange for our kids is that if they lived in Basildon, they could have a green scooter and they could pay for it, and that's fine. But I can't tell you how many green scooters now that, sorry, maybe I'm admitting NSP, I chuck in bushes. because I'm fed up with them being put over pavements, when actually we need to keep our pavements clear for all of our residents with disabilities especially. So what's the difference between Basildon and Wickford, when you can have a green scooter in Basildon, and it's absolutely legal, to then having a scooter here and trying to get some sort of enjoyment? Because let's face it, we can all moan about the kids, but what do we offer our children in Wickford? Does anybody look at that as a positive note? Is there anybody looking at, I've suggested Sergeant Ford come down from City Police and work with Oscar Waller, who's great on bikes, isn't he? He attended some carnival event, he's a good guy. And Sergeant Ford is more than happy to come down. And he is so good with guys on bikes. I don't think we have police on bikes in Basildon. And if we did, then actually policemen may see it in a different angle, and you may be able to approach children differently. And I think what you've been doing, especially about getting up there with the videos and the youngsters, is brilliant. But have you had any Wickford kids do that with you? Have you come to the downtown at a video there? Would you perhaps think about introducing the church? Because we've got a wonderful space. It's not religious with regards to space. We had Kevin Blake there the other night. The guy needs to, Jonathan Everton needs to, I'm not religious, sorry. He needs money for his bills, just like these community centres do. And our religion and Christianity is going down. So we've got space to cover. He could have silent disco once a month for the kids or every quarter. He could possibly look at, funding some mats and let them get their roller skates so they're ready for when all these skate parks come. We don't want skate parks. We're only be riding next about them all on skateboards. So what do we do with the Wickford kids? Should we just round them up and then put them in cells for a couple of days because they're so bad and so I'm a bit younger than everyone else is.
That's probably different. You did.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you could answer.
Probably
Because
because the type of kids you're talking
So-
about.
Sorry, let's not have an argument within the group. That's not what we're here for. We hear different people's opinions and we'll deal with what we can deal with. Yeah. So I think what you're referring to is the work we do through the Violence and Vulnerability Unit, which has actually been quite a lot of different work across the county, working with detached youth groups and making sure that kids who are thinking of doing stuff, thinking of doing the right stuff. Fire and Rescue did some great work through that with the fire breaks, which is a hugely successful programme. I don't know if you've done that here in Wickford.
Yes.
Maybe I'll pass the mic, maybe tell them about it. But if you feel that Wickford and Basildon are neglected that way, then I will certainly go back. I have to admit, I haven't got in my head what proportion of that intervention has actually been done here.
We can suggest some ideas collectively.
And certainly, if you want to take that offline, very happy to hear suggestions about what we can do to make sure that these kids are not doing the stuff that is really annoying, like the ball bearing chemicals, etc. In terms of the scooters, I think perhaps I'll go to Mr. Gould about the fire breaks, and then we can come back to you. But maybe you don't know about the scooter schemes, do you? I don't know.
Yeah, so the Fire Rescue Service has a long history of working with young people, and we do have a number of schemes. We do engage on a kind of day-to-day basis with local schools, and that we're always trying to push the fire service messages, as well as also being responsible adults. We do have two main schemes. We have a fire break scheme, which is an intense 5-day scheme, which is designed for, it's open to all children, but generally, primarily for those who would benefit most, generally from behaviour and things. It's an intensive course, and we do those across the county. We also do them at Wickford, so we've had quite a few here. We've got one starting very soon. We also have Fire Cadets as well, which is a 17-week programme, which is open to the wider Essex area. It's across Essex. We've got one in Orsett and one in Corringham, so that's an opportunity as well. If you go onto the website, you can actually recommend people to go on there, onto these fire cadet schemes as well. So, and that's really positive. We have seen a number of fire cadets come through that and have sort of changed their life around. They've actually joined the fire service as well. So it is a really positive thing.
Just to follow that, do you liaise with the scouts?
We do carry out visits with the scouts. So we realise that it's important for us to liaise with them for the fire safety message, but also it helps with the engagement. So yeah, we do try and liaise with the scouts.
Does anybody in this room know how many scouts we've got here in Wickford? Of interest, or any brownies?
Not really our area of responsibility or
Do you get
expertise.
police cadets? So we need to have the interest there to get police cadets. So is the interest in scouts already? we've done, obviously doesn't like this, and he runs it.
We do work with the Brownies. There's a Brownie group here, Wicklow Brownies, so we have had them to the station a few times. So.
Well, then, do this job for you.
So with regard to why there are green scooters in Basildon and not in Wickford, I don't think we know the answer to that. So we'll find out. And as there's any questions that come up like that,
I'm sorry to interject, but
Yes, 1 second, sir.
We don't want the green skirts.
to the best of my knowledge, they were introduced a few years ago originally as a pilot scheme. And that pilot scheme was only meant to last, I think, for 2 years. And it was voted in by the councillors to extend it to see if it was a viable proposition. But then again, it's also a form of finance coming in. And when things are getting really tight in the back pocket, no doubt they kept it going to keep some finance coming in. So that's, I think, is the crux matter behind those.
I'd be surprised if the money were meaningful.
Yeah.
But it certainly has been a pilot scheme. The government has extended the pilot scheme. I just didn't know why in Basildon and not Wickford. That was the question I didn't know the answer to. So I think what you say is absolutely right. Yeah. Who's next?
Any other questions? Sorry, lady up there hasn't spoken.
Okay. We're actually sort of together. We actually work at Gymophobic, and we were the two ladies who faced those people last week. It was frightening. There was a lot of them because when they first came to annoy us, we went to the door and asked them to just sort of go away, because we also have quite elderly ladies that come to the gym as well, and it was frightening for them. They then came back, first of all, Natalie had said to me, because I was due to be going home, she said, you aren't going home yet because there's loads of them out there. You're not walking out there in that. So we then went back upstairs to then be, again, banging on the door, opening the door, slamming the door. We went running down again and actually watched a kid deliberately kick the glass in. Natalie rang the police. Basically, we didn't get anything, and we were actually told somebody knocked on the door again to say that the kids that had done it were across the road by the alleyway by Poundland. So we related that to the police that they're still here, and they said they would get a fast response out, but there was no response whatsoever. And I've lived in Wickford all my life, pretty much, and the state of our town now, with all the kids, even just walking down there, I won't walk down in the evenings to go and do my session because I'm too scared. I take the car because I won't walk down there and walk back again while it's dark, because you should be able to walk down. And again, with all these kids with their bikes and everything, they're deliberately, cycling at you as well. And there's loads of kids down there. And, something needs to be done. That we never see any police down there or anybody just keeping a check. You're saying these things are happening down there, but there's nobody down there to actually face these kids. And
Do we know their hours?
So let's not have the ping pong across the room. So
Sorry.
thank you for raising it. And it must have been really terrifying. Sorry, you want to say something?
Sorry, I was just going to follow up from what Julie just said, because on the Thursday after the incident was reported, an iron, hinge was thrown at our window directly, and it missed a colleague by that much. The weight of this iron thing, I could be wrong, I don't know. It missed her by literally that much. This would have knocked her out, or something that would cause quite an injury if hit in the correct place. It was reported again for us to be told, if they come back, bring us again. And myself, only being 30, at the time on the Wednesday night, there was 4 elderly women. I have the situation to either protect myself, the women upstairs, or, it's very sort of, well, who do I go for and who do I protect? You can't approach these children because you don't know if they carry anything anymore. There's daytime shootings on a Sunday afternoon now, which, you know, you don't really hear of, or I never used to hear of as a kid. So
In Wickford?
there was a daytime shooting at a train station, and then there was a stabbing on a Sunday as well. There was a man that was armed with a machete.
The knives I know about.
There was a shooting. From obviously, this is what we hear from social media. So whether it was over exaggerated or it could have just been a BB gun, I don't know. But we just sort of hear what, you know, bits.
Which is terrifying.
But of course, but as a woman, well, I'm not old, but I'm not young, to feel I have to protect it myself, these people who are a little bit less vulnerable than I am, and it was just sort of, I felt a bit sort of alone with the fact that we were raised that police are protecting and.
So all of this fits very much into the stuff that we think is really important. I mean, making sure that town centres are safe, making sure that streets are safe, making sure that people don't feel threatened, particularly women and girls. But you're talking about elderly people, vulnerable people. This is absolutely stuff we should be dealing with. I think Julie wanted to say something, and then we'll go to the police.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to pick up on the point that you raised with regards to not feeling that you could walk through the town centre, the feelings of vulnerability, all of which we want to address. My colleague Lisa is actually leading on a women's charter at the moment, which is being led by an initiative for violence against women and girls. And we'd be really keen if you'd be willing to become involved in that and share some of your views so that we can tailor the service around that. It also means that we are having those additional patrols within Wickford, within the High Street. And Lisa has been carrying out some focus groups with women to find out what their feelings are, what their concerns are. And we're going to be setting up what are considered some safe places that people can go to. And all those things that you've said fit in incredibly well with the initiative that we're running. So we'd be over the moon if you'd work alongside us so that we can provide you with some support in that regard.
Would you be able to run a Wickford crime site for women, perhaps?
So I'll go to the police to respond to the question. Thank you.
Yeah, just going back to the ASB. So really mindful that a lot of it is seasonal. The bikes, it's fair to say, has got pretty much out of hand because it is a trend. It's not just a trend for Wickford, it's a trend because weirdly the kids are enjoying their bikes again. So it's gone through BMXs now on. The trend is to do wheelies as long as possible. So I know last year we were able to get together with one of the local companies, and they were almost closed off a road so they could do their stunts, for what a better expression, and get them involved. We were only talking about this last week as part of our partnership response. Is there anything that we could do to give them a venue to go and do this? Because I'm really mindful of the fact there is actually nowhere for the kids to do at the skate parks. You know, yes, they offer something, but they don't offer what these youngsters need. There's also the bit about safety in numbers. You know, we're mindful of some of the nasty stuff that has been happening to kids, and you know, whilst it's not nice for you guys to see it all, these youngsters are feeling safe when they're together. But that in itself is going to be quite intimidating to anyone looking onto it. So there's something that we have to pick up on. We did an awful lot of outreach work last year with volunteer sector and also through Essex County Council, some of their assets there. And the reality was the sort of kids that we were dealing with, they weren't children who come to notice. They were kids that had parents that were very disappointed that, you know, we got involved. We were working alongside the school, and the school were very much, you know, keen to work with us in relation to any kind of antisocial behaviour. So this year, I think, you know, we don't want to see those spikes in antisocial behaviour reporting. All our figures, if I'm honest, they show a downturn in antisocial behaviour, a downturn in most of the crime. So when I'm looking at posting my resources day to day, I'm not going to put them, if I'm honest, in an area that has got low crime, low antisocial behaviour. I am going to be putting them where I have got threat, harm, risk, where I have seen violence and nasty incidents. Unfortunately, you know, I have to balance that. That said, hearing the way the room is tonight, there's clear gaps in terms of what is being missed. But I will ensure that we have got that proportionate response and listen to that. But my ask again is that things get reported to us. really disappointed to hear your example, and I'm sure Mr. McHugh is as well. And I know we'll take that away and have a look as to why you didn't get a response. No, I didn't, and I tend to know about most things that have happened. So we'll arrange a follow-up so we can come down and we can do some, some discussion with you in relation to how we can make you feel better and safer about where you work. We'll arrange that visit for tomorrow. So hopefully there'll be somebody about. Don't get them doing any exercises though, because some of them won't be able to do it. So, but no, thank you. It's quite humbling and quite embarrassing to hear tales like that, and it's not a position that me and Dan like being in, I'll be honest.
Just a question here from this gentleman. I don't actually live in Wickford myself. I do live in another part of the borough, and I've been pretty horrified by some of the things I've heard in the last half hour, and I hope you have been too. Your opening statement seemed pretty complacent to me, and I hope that's been shaken by the stories that you've been told. I'd just like to broaden the discussion a bit to possibly something a bit political. Are there too many criminals being allowed to walk the streets? And I'd make 2 points. One, is the Police and Criminal Evidence Act fit for purpose, or is it making it too easy for criminals to get away with their crimes? Does it make it too difficult for you to convict offenders, or for the courts to convict offenders, I should say? Secondly, I think about 20 years ago, the government introduced a concept called indeterminate sentences for public protection, which meant that serious criminals could be kept in prison beyond the term they had been sentenced to if they were not rehabilitated and safe to release to the community. When the Conservative government came in, and I'm sure you'll be happy for me to tackle you on this because you've got your job with a Conservative label against your name, the Conservatives repealed this act and went back to the revolving door system of imprisonment, where people are released at the end of, if not before, the end of their sentences, whether they have been rehabilitated or not, and are just left to resume their life of crime. Now, does that improve life for the people of Essex, or would it be better if persistent, unreformed criminals were kept in jail? And why do the Conservatives think having criminals out on the streets is better?
A very difficult question. I'll try and keep the answer brief because I'm fairly confident that most people came here wanting to raise local issues, but they are relevant questions. I would just say one of my first acts as chairman of the local criminal justice board was to look at the number of people we had out on licence and look at the number of crimes they were committing. And actually it was one of the big early successes 8 years ago, finding that a disproportionate level of violent crime and indeed homicide was committed by people out on licence. And talking with our friends in probation and in the courts, we managed to get that changed. And I absolutely agree with you. We don't want to have people who are violent criminals out walking the streets of Essex. The indeterminate sentence issue was one that was massively controversial at the time. And there was a very large civil liberties lobby saying that we were keeping people locked up who would otherwise not be out recommitting crime. I believe the current process still allows people to be kept in for life. Life can mean life. I would be with you.
Well, if they've been sentenced to life.
And life can mean life, yes, exactly. They have to be sentenced to life. I will be with you. I would not be wanting to see people released as early as they are. That is, however, quite rightly an issue for the courts, not for me. And the judges will be absolutely irate if they thought that I was trying to press them to do anything different. That's not my job. My job is to ensure the efficiency and effectiveness of policing and the fire and rescue service, and to work with the courts, prisons and probation to make sure the system is efficient. But I do not have any bearing on sentencing. And under our British Constitution, I'm sure you would agree, it would be wrong for me to do so as an executive politician, to be trying to force the legislature to do anything in particular. I can sympathise with you, but I can't tell you I'm going to change it.
Thank you. I quite appreciate that you can't interfere with what the courts do, but as a Conservative politician, presumably you have some contact with your colleagues in Westminster and Whitehall and can influence them to reverse these things if you disagree with them.
And we have here from Essex, working with our local MPs, we've done a lot in terms of changing the law. So increasing the level of sentencing for people committing offences against shop workers, against emergency workers, certainly getting the new knife legislation to get machetes taken off the streets. That was very much down to work that I and Anna Firth, MP for South End West, did together. So yes, you're absolutely right, I can and do.
These things do all seem to take an awful long time.
Well, that is absolutely true. Yes, legislature does take a long time.
Just a lady here wishes to make a point.
If you don't mind me following on to that, actually, talking about criminals, we do have them in Woodford. We've also got in Basildon Council a new probation centre that's set up. I don't know if anyone's been to the centre recently. It's all been branded new, that they've got a probation service. I don't know if you guys know much about that, but I do know that if you are on hard times or have been made homeless, there is no housing available in Wickford for our local heads, people that are already here. We don't mind welcoming new people in as long as they are good people. Now, for me to see a lady quite loud in shop, quite vivid, in bright, attire, looking so really cool, with a massive tag round her leg, knowing she'd only moved in like within the year, when there's no houses available in Wickford. There are actually 2 blocks of flats in Wickford, one of them actually being on our high street. And also we do have a mixture of really vulnerable people that go to the church, maybe not religious, just because, the doors are open. We're finding very, very few doors are still open, like the RBL. Should be even more open, but you have to have an address, then it's hard, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's trying to do their bit. But I'm actually noticing that our kind, vulnerable people that used to be more, they used to be around to talk, we like to talk in Wickford, me especially, and therefore we're kind. So when you see these people on the streets have a chat, they're no longer on the streets have a chat, but then you see them kind of with this group of people that, are here. And I am worried about, money's being tight anyway with US credit, and that they might fall victim again of the actual real criminals that are here, especially don't like the kids. They're not stealing off of our vulnerable people. And that is crime. And that is something that really needs to be addressed, because if we are to get, say, 150 flats next to the Swan, and then the planning permission is going to sell 3 times, and then all of a sudden, we're not actually seeing any of our own residents from Basildon Council being homed in our own boroughs, especially the women. Now, I feel that there should be a choice for women if they are to leave the boundaries or not. Some have to, I agree. But they should have a chance to come back, surely. And they're not. So we're getting shipped around, and also it's not okay to be placed in,
I think I've got the point you're trying to make.
Make sure that the kids aren't then looking at these criminals thinking, do you know what, we get found out so much, we'll just become criminals and we'll get back.
Okay, I don't want to run out of time.
Sorry.
I think there's something there about housing allocation policy, but that's not your area of the council, is it?
No, maybe just work together a little bit.
Yeah. So I think what we can do there is take that back as a reflection to the council. Thank you, Julie. You'll do that. Did anyone else want to comment on any bits of that? Okay. Sorry.
Sorry, gentlemen.
Good evening. As you know, we had a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in Forsyth in Wickford, and there's no speed cameras along the Netherland Road, and the side roads are horrendous. The speeding, the vehicles come down sometimes 50, 60 mile an hour, and we've got the school children walking up every day. Somebody at some stage is going to be injured, and the parking on the paths here as well. The Burnham Avenue is horrendous. You've got the elderly people having to sometimes go in the road because they're not able to walk on the pavements. have raised, I saw Mark Francois 2 weeks ago, because sent an email to our local councillors, didn't want to know. But he said he was going to speak to the commander at Basildon and also at Chelmsford. So we don't see anybody checking the speed limits along here. 20 mile an hour on Nebden Road is ridiculous. It should stay at 20. Sorry, at 30.
Okay, so speeding really is an issue that I care about deeply. The gentleman behind you said we're worried about complacency, but we've done a lot about speeding. And we have, do we have a community speed watch actually in this area?
Due to be set up, it's on plan, there are some volunteers.
So the guy behind you has got his hand up.
Billericay Residents Association got some volunteers together to form a community speed watch about 5 years ago, I think. The training of them was constantly delayed. The cameras hadn't been calibrated, the trainers weren't available. It must have been 2 years at least before they were actually allowed to go out and do anything. And then unfortunately it all, I think, collapsed when COVID arrived.
Yeah, COVID was a big one. So I'm going to pick up on that and say what we've done is the Fire and Rescue Service has taken over the coordination of Community Speed Watch and have improved it enormously. So it's definitely worth a second attempt.
So is the Billericay one up and running now?
I'm not sure that you would know.
We have a sort of group of safe and well-being sort of community safety team that sort of deal with that, so directly liaise. Yes, so I'm not aware of the status of the actual Billericay one, but I know we have a community safety team who work with the community to run these events, and my understanding is they've been quite successful so far.
Yeah, and they've been doing really well setting up groups post. Sorry, they've been doing really well setting up groups post COVID. So I think we'll pick that bit up via the Fire and Rescue Service and try and make that work. Do you want to make any comments about the speed enforcement?
Only last week we were doing some enforcement in the wider district, and I was given a report, and I think Steve's seen it as well, around a school, around speeding, and we had loads of enforcement action there. The Netherden Road thing is something that was mentioned to me in the council meeting. We've got plans in place to put an operation together to start tackling that. So it absolutely is on our radar and we'll take action.
Gentleman here has a question.
Hi, forgive me. I'm 39. I've lived in Wickford all my life. Kind of invested in there now. I've got 2 kids. You know, I've not a couple of properties. I've moved and I've stayed. I think it's really interesting how we're at the beginning of the meeting, all the kind of bits that have been going on about the car damaging and the BB guns and stuff. And that's really why I come today, because I've got 2 kids that go to Abacus, and I live right near where a lot of the incidences have been happening, and there's a group round there, which I think we all know. Even when I was a kid, we had problems. There's always been a few issues around there. But I guess what I wanted to ask quite directly is, you addressed it, about the car theft. What do we actually do when that happens? Like, what do you want from us if you've got examples when the police are being rung and they're not turning up? What do you actually want if that happens? Ring doorbell, CCTV camera? Yeah, that will actually, if that's actually helped you find people with the cases that you've. Great, okay. I just want to know, because it's just worrying, all the stuff that's going on with 2 kids, and we've got CCTV camera up where we can, and just trying our best. No, thanks.
I appreciate your comments. I mean, we have set up a stolen vehicle investigation unit. It does gather all that intelligence. Just recently, I think we've recovered vehicles worth about £14 million. Some of them picked up within an hour of having been stolen. We are determined to get better at it and actually stop it happening. It's a real challenge, particularly with the high-end ones. There's a thing called proximity opening, which is, if you've got a really nice car, you can get a key that means you don't actually have to even press a button, you just walk up to the car opens. For me, that car's locked. I'm sure for you, that car's locked. For a thief, that car's opened. There's just a device you can buy off the internet that grabs the code. Your key is always broadcasting that code. The car's always willing to pick it up. They grab the code, they pretend they're the key, they use a booster, they walk in, they drive it away. The tracker's gone, the disablement's gone, they can just drive it. And then it's a question of speed to get there. one of the vehicles that was stolen was recovered in a drug bust in Mombasa in Kenya. Right? So some of this stuff is being shipped out pretty quickly by some very expert guys who know what they're doing. It is a really big police operation to get on top of it. I'm confident we will, but I have to say I'm not complacent that we have. Do you want to say any more about that?
Yeah, only last week we carried out a warrant in Basildon and recovered some high-end vehicles that would have been bound for out of the country. So we've recovered those, we've reunited them with their owners. So we're acting on those information, the intelligence, we're developing it into search warrants. We're taking action now, but we're not complacent. We're continuing that work. And like on your point around CCTV cameras, technology is advancing so quickly, but we're starting to catch up with that now. We've got technology that we're able to send you like a link to share the footage with us straight away. So it's in our possession straight away. It's much slicker, much more efficient, and it captures that evidence really quickly before it's lost. So yeah, absolutely, we're doing all we can around vehicle crime. It's a national issue, it's an Essex issue, but we are taking action. We've got lots of operations in place to deal with it.
It's a very relevant question. Thank you. What else have we got?
Oh, lady over here.
Sorry, I just want to say one more thing.
Yeah, please.
About the cars.
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered about this idea of police presence. I just want to come back to that because I really do feel that if there was a police officer or two, because I understand you're supposed to go about in pairs, I mean, walking up and down occasionally, that would really knock a lot of crime on the head, I feel. I think it's a similar situation in Basildon as well. I frequently go into Basildon at the weekend, and there are groups of youths wandering around, causing mayhem, chaos. There's occasionally they're being followed around by the security in Basildon, but I just feel that a police officer just strolling about, good old-fashioned policing, the young people that are causing these crimes, that are committing these crimes or antisocial behaviour, they might not necessarily have committed crime, but they're making people feel uncomfortable when they're in the shops. Some people are having their purses and wallets stolen as well. I understand that's right. I don't know if anybody mentioned that, but you know that's happened to somebody I know already in Wickford. It's the same in Basildon. There's a lot of theft, but there's also this antisocial behaviour with the youths. I remember recently the manageress of Primark had to shut her doors. I thought she was shutting early. I couldn't understand it, but she'd actually have to shut the main doors of Primark because kids were throwing the wet floor signs, you know, those great big yellow signs that are very heavy, over the top of the balcony from the top floor onto people down below. But not a police officer in sight. And I understand, you know, if you haven't got the police to police the areas, you can't do it. But surely it's so obvious that if there was a police presence, it would stop some of these crimes, stop some people, the public feeling so uncomfortable in Wickford and Basildon, and also the car crime. People are coming home from work after a long day at work in London to find their cars been stolen, and it's happening in broad daylight. A lady commented on Wickford Chit Chat last week or the week before. She witnessed people going around trying the doors of the cars. She actually saw it, and I'm thinking if a police officer were there, they wouldn't know that they weren't necessarily going to be there the next day, because if they were there occasionally, that would stop people perhaps committing the crimes. I don't know.
So the first thing to say is, if you see someone saying that a Wickford Chit Chat, please ask them to report it on the basis of intelligence. We need the intelligence. Yeah? And the other thing is, I agree with you. The Chief Constable agrees with you.
Yeah.
We have put in place town centre teams across the county, 68 cops who are there to patrol town centres. In Basildon, they work very closely with the community wardens that are funded by Basildon Council. We need more of that. I don't actually know what your plans are. I mean, how do the town centre teams work here in Wickford?
Yeah, so we've got a team of dedicated town centre officers, of which we split across Billericay, Wickford, and the main stretch of Basildon as a town. So contrary to obviously what I've heard this evening, I am putting resource into Billericay and Wickford. Unfortunately, so much does get drawn into Basildon as a town centre because of some of the issues that we have faced. But we have seen some really, really significant results in both Billericay and Wickford of late. You know, one of the biggest issues that's been raised was around drugs. So observations made, intelligence gathered, and then we're doing the warrants. Obviously, that does take the visibility away from the town centre locations, but there's some harm that sits behind that. We're taking drugs off the street. So I can't do all of it, but we go a long way in doing what we can. But certainly, if you were to go into Basildon any day, you'd see yellow coats, you would see visibility. You should on any given day be seeing yellow coats, visibility from either the wardens or my officers within Billericay and Wickford and elsewhere. That's something, obviously, I'm conscious of the fact that perhaps we're not getting it quite right, but we're putting resource where we had the issues, and it's probably a good thing that you're not seeing loads of police everywhere, because Wickford in particular is a very, very safe place to live, but clearly there's some work that we've got to do around it.
It sounds as though the town centre really needs more attention.
One thing on the yellow coats thing, the local borders that you do have, they don't wear the yellow coats, they just wear the black. They're not high visibility presence. You've got the council ones, which is great, but they patrol with their black, their body worn cameras and just black, not yellow jackets. Just having that yellow jacket is a good thing, I agree, but they're not. They definitely don't.
Okay, that's useful feedback. We'll follow it up. And I was just going to say to the inspector, it might be a case for a bid to the chief constable for a bit more resource for Basildon town technically, by the sound of it, if you're being stretched that far.
Lighting good. It's nice to see a few shops now getting a bit more.
We'll go to the gentleman with the microphone.
Thank you again. Inspector Parry, I think a lot of people, the residents of Wickford and Shopgate, would disapprove and wouldn't agree with your statement about Wickford being a safe place to be. It's not, okay? And I don't mean to say that rudely to you, that you don't know what you're talking about. Social media right across is heaving with people exclaiming their disappointment. Now, I know we've expanded on the use of extra resources in the area, and you're considering all of the options with cameras, etc., and it's good. But what I want to get across to you is, as far as the gang aspect of the young people and their high numbers, is being spurred on by a certain part of our community where ponies and traps are being purposely ridden in the centre of the road, and especially around school times, not every day. So that's why I say that covert, I always think that covert, as you stated earlier, covert policing for intelligence gathering or cameras will help you, because what's happening, those people are coming out with their ponies and traps, and they're purposely driving in any direction in both lanes, stopping traffic. Now, when those young gangs of kids are there, they see it, and because they see that happening regularly, nothing done about it, not being rude, because it's not, because it continues, they feel that they can carry on the same thing. They're being spurred on. All I'm saying is get on top of that situation of where it's starting from, because I've actually seen the traps separated from the animals, and the animals tethered to the bridge where the railroad, just where Oldie site is. I've actually seen those animals on the pavements, tethered to the railing, all right? And I did report it to police. One of the young people came up to me, an 18-year-old boy, and asked me if I wanted a slap in the mouth now or later tonight. But I put myself forward to do that, and still they're doing it. I won't carry on any longer because you want to get on to other things.
I think we'll take, we've kind of dealt with that before, and we'll take that additional information away and include it. Can we have one at a time, please?
Sorry.
So thank you for that. We are actually a bit over the time we originally set to one side. Is there anyone with anyone who hasn't had opportunity to get to ask their question who'd like to please do?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. I heard about the public space protection order. I know that the council reviewed that within the last year. And I think picking up just from the issue about the horse and traps, is that you can actually implement horse and trap public space protection orders in our parks, because I know we've got it in the Wick Country Park and Cranfield Park. So I think actually we're missing quite a bit of, our community wardens can have that assistance to the police. And I think that's one of the things that perhaps in the review although it's too late now, should have actually been done last year to actually pick it up. So there's time to actually put pressure on what's happening, to actually get it down for the benefit of the residents of Wickford.
Yeah, as part of introducing the PSPO, which is obviously a 3-year, it was introduced for 3 years, we do a review every year. So we will be doing another review this year of the public space protection order. I think pony and traps was included in 3 of our parks. So it was Northlands, Cranfield, and Barn Hall, I believe. And then Netherden was introduced last year as part of the review as well. So we do look at if it's displaced or if there's any evidence to suggest that we need to include other areas, that we do that. So we'll be going out for a consultation probably in the next few months to look at that.
Just the one point is that what my theory was, that the theory was, because I sat on the committee at the time, was that particularly with Cranfield Park, if you put it on there, you're going to have the dispersal, as you say. Whereas just, I think the more disappointing part was that your officers didn't agree with me. So, but the consultation from the residents nearby, they thankfully saw what I was talking about. But I just think that's perhaps one of the more things of, if the police are passing you information, particularly on where these individuals are that are breaking these PSPOs, that you're actually tackling it. So not sort of the day after, but there's actually a scheme of work that can actually do that.
Yeah. We do gather the intelligence and obviously work with our police. So we do, but obviously, and I appreciate it's not, it takes time. So we have to make sure that we're satisfying all the legal duties around a PSPO. So we need to make sure that we've got the correct evidence in place. So I fully appreciate that, and we will continue to look at the other areas that we can add.
Thank you. Did you want to go?
Any further questions?
Final question?
I have
Anybody?
one, just wrap it up with just one positive was positive and negative.
We'll just deal with the positive. We've had a negative.
That's fine. Well, it's, you know yourself, Julie Taylor, who's a wonderful woman within the community. She's got a fantastic initiative out. She has founded the implementation of blood bags into local shops, businesses, restaurants, pubs, community centres, wherever, you name it. I think they're just over £100, something like that.
Basically £100, the fancy ones are £200.
We've managed to have one funded for the Derby Digger, which is brilliant. And if anybody has so much worry about all of this SB and all of these pony traps that might run people over, blood comes out. And so if anybody, it doesn't matter if accident or incident, just like, am I allowed to speak? I will put you down again and again, man. Thank you. I'm not ever going to be bullied by a man, thank you. I'll tell you what you do. You are going to be the first fundraisers, £100 each to these fellas here, because they've got so much to say, but they don't do much.
Please,
so you can both raise £100 each for blood bags. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Can
much.
I just say, good point. The bleeding kits are fantastic. They've already saved about 7 lives across the county. Really worth supporting. So thank you for that final comment. Thank you. Just for me to close then, I think really, as ever, these meetings are really useful. We always do find out stuff that doesn't come in through the natural course of 101 or 999 or the control room or the other feedback channels that we have. I think it's we never seem to get quite so many questions for fire and rescue, but I'm always grateful for them for being here, because just occasionally we have a public meeting where fire and rescue is the main focus of what's going on. And thank you also to our colleagues from the council, because it is, what I know is we really solve things when we work together. When we work together as partners and when we work as partners of you in the community. So that's why it really matters to hear what you've had to say this evening. I've taken sheaves of notes. We've got everything recorded. We hopefully have managed to answer some points this evening, but there are other things that we need to take away, and we can, form a plan really. And work out how we're going to get to grips with it. So thank you very much indeed for coming out this evening. Really appreciate it, and I wish you a safe trip home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.